Welcome to our deep dive on Andrew Urdiales.
Ooh,
We're going to be looking at excerpts from his Wikipedia page.
interesting choice.
Yeah, it gives us a pretty comprehensive look, I think, at his crimes and the timeline and kind of all the legal ramifications that happen later.
Yeah,
So by the end of this, you'll have a solid grasp on Urdiales' trajectory, some of the disturbing details of his crimes, and the way that the legal system ultimately dealt with his case.
yeah, it's a fascinating case
Yeah.
and a really, I think, disturbing one when you think about kind of how we think about serial killers and the things that motivate them.
Absolutely.
Um,
So let's start with his early life.
okay.
Born in Chicago in 1964.
Okay.
Seemingly pretty ordinary childhood.
hmm
But there is this one incident at age 13 where he kills the family dog
Right.
and claimed that it was an accident.
This is where things get interesting.
Yeah.
While it's not a direct predictor,
Right.
not every kid who hurts an animal becomes a serial killer.
Right.
But it is sometimes a sign of deeper issues.
Yeah.
Think of it like a crack in the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole field of study dedicated to this kind of early behavior.
Yeah.
Forensic psychology.
Mm-hmm.
They look for patterns,
Yeah.
trying to understand what factors might contribute to someone going down this violent path.
It makes you wonder, like, what was going on in his head even then. Like,
Yeah.
he graduates high school, joins the Marines, serves in Desert Storm. It's like he was living a double life.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's one of the most unsettling aspects of this case, I think, is this contrast between a seemingly normal existence
Right.
and these really brutal acts.
Yeah.
It reminds us that evil doesn't always wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it hides in plain sight.
Okay, so in 1986, Urdiales is stationed at Camp Pendleton in California,
Right.
and this is where his first known murder takes place.
Yeah.
The victim was Robin Bramley,
Okay.
a college student.
Hmm. The level of violence in this murder is truly disturbing.
It's there.
Yeah.
Urdiales stabbed Bramley 41 times.
It's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not just about ending a life.
Right.
It's about rage.
Yeah.
It's about exerting control
Yeah.
in the most extreme way imaginable.
Yeah.
Forensic anthropologists and criminologists often analyze wound patterns like this
Right.
to try to understand the killer's state of mind.
Yeah.
They compare it to other cases,
Mhm.
looking for similarities
Right.
that might point to underlying motives or psychological profiles.
It's just
Yeah,
unbelievable to think about.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
And that was just the beginning. Over the next few years, Urdiales murdered several more women in California: Julie McGee, Marianne Wells,
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Irwin.
Right.
It seemed random.
Mm-hmm.
There was no clear pattern.
Yeah, that apparent lack of a pattern is what made it so difficult for investigators to connect the dots early on.
Right.
Think
Yeah.
about it from their perspective. You're looking for links.
You're looking for a signature.
Yeah.
You're looking for something that ties these seemingly disparate cases together.
It's like a puzzle where the pieces don't fit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in 1991, Urdiales is honorably discharged from the Marines and moves back to Chicago.
Hmm.
You would think that would be the end of it.
Right.
But
But it wasn't.
yeah.
And this is where the case takes, I think, an even darker turn.
Okay.
In 1992, while back in California for a visit, Urdiales has this chilling encounter with a young woman named Jennifer Asbenson.
Oh, gosh.
He attacks her, he ties her up,
Yeah.
puts her in his car trunk.
It's terrifying to even imagine.
It's terrifying. And to think that she managed to escape,
Yeah.
her escape was remarkable.
Yeah.
And her testimony proved to be crucial to understanding Urdiales' methods
Right.
and to some extent his psychology.
Yeah.
Imagine being an investigator on this case.
Mm-hmm.
You have these brutal murders,
Yeah.
but no clear motive,
Yeah.
no connection between the victims. Then you
Yeah.
have Asbenson's story.
Mm-hmm.
She survived. She
Mhm.
fought back.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, she provided a window into the mind of the killer.
Yeah.
Her testimony becomes a piece of the puzzle
Yeah.
that starts to make the picture clear.
Right.
Um,
So even after this close call, Urdiales didn't stop.
no.
In 1995, he kills Denise Meharney in California.
hmm
And then there's this 3-year period where it seems like he goes quiet.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
These periods of inactivity are fascinating.
Yeah.
It's hard to know for sure what was going on in his mind.
Right.
Was he trying to exert control over his urges?
Mm-hmm.
Was he land low, afraid of getting caught after that Asbenton incident?
Right.
Or was it something else entirely?
Mm-hmm.
These are the kinds of questions that behavioral analysts grapple with
Yeah.
when they try to profile serial killers.
Right.
They look for clues, patterns, anything that might shed light on the killer's motives and behavior.
It's like a game of cat and mouse, except with really terrifyingly real stakes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so here's the real kicker during this time. Okay.
Urdiales is living in Chicago, working as a security guard.
Right.
It's unbelievable, like the level of deception.
Well, this is where that concept of the double life really comes into play. You know,
Yeah.
he's going about his day, he's interacting with people, he's potentially even being seen as a figure of authority,
Right.
all while harboring this very dark secret.
Yeah.
And it underscores just how difficult it can be to identify these individuals before they strike.
Right.
There's often no outward sign, no telltale mark that sets them apart.
And sadly, his crimes escalate. In 1996, he murders Laura Uyaki in Indiana, followed by Cassandra Coram and Lynn Huber in Illinois. It's like he's spiraling out of control.
Yeah, the increasing frequency of the murders,
Yeah.
the geographical spread,
Yeah.
it does suggest a possible loss of control,
Right.
almost as if the urge, the compulsion,
Right.
was becoming too strong to resist.
Right.
And this is often a pattern we see in serial killers.
Yeah.
They escalate, they become bolder.
More reckless.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's a twisted sense of confidence.
Right.
Or maybe it's just the compulsion taking over.
It's chilling to think about.
Yeah,
But thankfully, his reign of terror was about to end.
it was.
Yeah.
And it ended in a somewhat unexpected way.
Okay.
In December of 1996,
Mhm.
Urdiales was arrested,
Yeah.
but not for murder.
Wait, what?
An unlicensed weapon.
Oh, wow.
It's almost a foreshadowing of what was to come.
So they didn't have enough to connect him to the murders at that point.
Not yet.
Okay.
But this arrest would prove to be his undoing.
Okay.
Just a few months later, in April 1997, police wanted to check his gun in connection with the unsolved murders.
Wow.
And that's when it all unraveled.
So ballistics evidence was the key.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Faced with that undeniable evidence,
Yeah.
Urdiales confessed to all 8 murders.
That must have been a huge moment for investigators after all those years of searching for answers. But as we'll see, his confession was really just the beginning of a long and complex legal battle.
Right.
That's a story for part 2
For part 2.
of our deep dive.
It is.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Last time we left off with Urdiales' arrest and confession.
Right.
Now, things get really interesting, especially for those of you who are really into the true crime and legal system side of things.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be unpacking the legal proceedings, starting with those trials in Illinois.
Okay.
So remember, he was charged with the murders of Laura Uyaki, Cassandra Coram, and Lynn Huber, all in Illinois.
Right. And right off the bat, the prosecution is going for the death penalty,
Okay.
which, as you can imagine, throws fuel on an already fiery debate.
Right.
This was a time when the death penalty was a huge point of contention in Illinois, with a lot of people pushing for its abolition.
So Urdiales' case kind of becomes this microcosm of this much larger issue.
Exactly.
Did he end up getting sentenced to death in Illinois?
He did in 2002.
Oh.
He's found guilty of 2 of those Illinois murders and sentenced to death.
Wow.
But just when it seems like the case is closed, there's this bombshell development
Wow.
that throws everything into chaos.
Okay.
Northwestern University does this study,
Mm-hmm.
and they find that there's a chance that some people on death row in Illinois were actually wrongly convicted.
Wow.
That throws a massive wrench into the whole system.
Yeah.
Raises all these questions about, whether the justice system is actually getting it right.
It must have been just a huge wake-up call. Hold on, are we making irreversible mistakes here?
Exactly. And it had a huge impact on the death penalty debate in Illinois.
Yeah.
Governor George Ryan, at the time, makes this monumental decision.
Okay.
He commutes the sentences of all 167 death row inmates,
Wow.
including Urdiales.
Hold up. So commutation basically means his death sentence was changed to life in prison.
You get it. It's like a legal detour,
Okay.
a shift in punishment,
Right.
without actually overturning the conviction itself.
Okay.
A lot of factors play into a decision like that.
Yeah.
Legal precedents, public opinion, changing social values. It's complex stuff.
Right.
But in this case, Governor Ryan basically said, look, there's too much doubt, too much at stake to carry out these executions, while there are these lingering questions about the system's accuracy.
That's a bold move.
It is.
But wait, there's more, right? Because I feel like we're just getting started with the legal back and forth.
You're right. The prosecution, they're not satisfied.
No.
Um, they still want justice for all of Urdiales' victims, not just some of them.
Yeah.
So they decide to go after him
Okay.
for that third Illinois murder,
Right.
the one he hadn't been tried for yet.
Okay, so it's like round 2 in the courtroom.
It is.
What was the defense strategy this time around?
This is where it gets even more interesting.
Ooh.
His defense team tries a new tactic.
Okay.
They argue that he was mentally ill.
Right.
It's common strategy in cases like this.
Yep.
But it raises all sorts of ethical and legal questions. Like, what does insanity really mean in the eyes of the law?
Right.
And how do we balance accountability
Yeah.
with the fact that mental illness can impact a person's actions?
It makes you really think about how we define responsibility when it comes to this kind of criminal behavior.
Exactly.
So what was the verdict in this second Illinois trial?
The judge wasn't swayed by the insanity plea.
Okay.
Urdiales gets his second death sentence in 2004.
Wow.
But get this fate, or maybe the ever-shifting legal landscape in Illinois, intervenes again.
What happened?
In 2011, Illinois abolishes the death penalty completely.
What?
Poof, just like that.
Wow.
So Urdiales' death sentence is automatically changed to life in prison.
Okay, so it seems like finally this legal roller coaster has come to a stop.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But there's one more chapter to this story.
Okay.
Remember all those murders in California?
Right, yeah.
California's been watching this whole thing unfold,
Mm.
patiently waiting in the wings. They
Yeah.
haven't forgotten about those 5 murders.
This is where it all comes full circle.
It does.
He might have slipped through the cracks of the death penalty in Illinois,
Yeah.
but California is ready to step up.
Yep. Just hours after that second death sentence gets commuted in Illinois.
Wow.
Prosecutors in Orange County, California, start the extradition process.
Okay.
They want him back on their turf
Right.
to face justice
Right.
for the murders of Robin Brandley, Julie McGee, Marianne Wells, Tammy Irwin, and Denise Marfney.
Talk about persistent. It shows you that law enforcement doesn't forget,
No.
especially when there are victims who deserve justice.
Right.
So Urdiales is sent back to California for yet another trial.
That's right. It's 2018.
Wow.
And Urdiales finds himself back in court this time in California.
Okay.
The evidence against him is overwhelming,
Yeah.
and the jury finds him guilty on all 5 counts of murder.
After all that legal maneuvering, after dodging the death penalty twice in Illinois, it seems like justice is finally going to be served in California.
The jury recommends the death penalty.
Okay.
And in October 2018, Urdiales receives his 3rd death sentence.
Wow.
This time, there's no commutation,
Right.
no legal loopholes.
Wow.
But as we'll find out when we come back,
Okay.
the final chapter of this story takes an unexpected turn.
You've really piqued my curiosity now. Stay tuned, listeners, because in part 3, we're going to uncover the final chapter of Andrew Urdiales' saga and delve into some of the broader implications of this really complex and disturbing case. Okay, so we're back, and you're not going to believe this, but even after 3 death sentences, Urdiales' story still isn't over.
I know, right?
We talked about his horrific crimes, all the legal twists and turns, and now we're at the final chapter.
Yeah, this last part is truly unexpected.
Okay.
Just a month after that 3rd death sentence, Urdiales is found dead in his cell.
Oh, wow.
It's San Quentin State Prison.
What happened?
He took his own life suicide by hanging.
That's heavy. It kind of brings up all these different questions, right? About, the toll that life on death row takes, whether the system really works, and even the morality of capital punishment itself.
Absolutely.
Like after all those years, all those court battles back and forth, it ends not with an execution, but with Urdiales taking his own fate into his hands.
Right. It makes you wonder about the psychological impact of that kind of existence.
Right.
Constant uncertainty, the waiting, the knowing that your life could end at any moment.
So after taking this deep dive with us, what do you think are some of the biggest takeaways from this case?
I think, for me, it's the chilling reminder that you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Urdiales lived this seemingly normal life.
Yeah.
Military service jobs, relationships.
Right.
And yet underneath it all was this capacity for incredible violence.
Yeah. It's scary.
It challenges our assumptions about who we can trust.
Right.
And I think the very nature of evil.
It's a really disturbing thought to realize that someone you might just pass on the street could be harboring that much darkness.
It is.
And we can't forget about Jennifer Asbenson.
Absolutely not.
The woman who escaped from his car trunk.
Yeah, her story is incredibly powerful.
Right.
Not just because she survived,
Mm-hmm.
but because her testimony was so crucial
Right.
in understanding Urdiales
Yeah.
and ultimately bringing him to justice.
Right.
It underscores, I think, the importance of listening to survivors,
Absolutely.
of giving them a voice,
Yeah.
and recognizing the courage that it takes to speak out.
Her story is just a testament to the strength of the human spirit
It is.
and a reminder that even in the face of like unimaginable terror,
Right.
there's always hope.
Absolutely.
Another takeaway for me is that the legal system, while it's striving for justice, it's not perfect.
Right.
Urdiales' case with all its multiple trials and, the death penalty debates
Mhm.
and the eventual abolition of capital punishment in Illinois, it shows just how complex and evolving these issues are.
Yeah.
It forces us, I think, to confront these challenges of balancing retribution with rehabilitation,
Right.
ensuring fairness while acknowledging that there are flaws
Hmm.
in any system that's created by humans.
Yeah, I think it's less about taking sides
Yeah.
on the death penalty
Right.
and more about just understanding the nuances, the
Yeah.
different perspectives,
Hmm.
the impact these decisions have on really everyone involved.
So why does any of this matter, right?
Right.
Urdiales is gone.
Yeah.
His crimes are in the past.
Hmm.
But why should we still care about his case?
Because I think his story goes beyond just one man.
Okay.
It forces us to ask these uncomfortable questions about human nature,
Yeah.
about the potential for darkness within seemingly ordinary people.
Right.
And I think it's a reminder to be vigilant, to trust our instincts,
Right.
and to speak up if something feels wrong.
It's a wake-up call to not be naive and complacent. And maybe by understanding cases like this, by exploring, the complexities of violence in the criminal justice system, we can work toward creating a society that's more compassionate and more equipped to prevent these kinds of tragedies from happening again.
Right.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
Before we go, though, there's one more thing I want to kind of leave you with.
Okay.
We know Urdiales served in the Marines. We know that he was deployed to Desert Storm.
Right.
And we know that exposure to trauma can have lasting psychological effects.
Absolutely.
Could that have played a role in his path?
It's certainly possible. It's a question
Yes.
we can't definitively answer,
Right.
but it's worth pondering.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of, I think, recognizing those invisible wounds of war and providing support for our veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a conversation that we need to keep having both for the sake of those who served and for the safety of our communities.
I agree.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the complex and disturbing case of Andrew Urdiales.
It was my pleasure.
If this has piqued your interest, there are countless resources out there.
Yeah.
Books, articles, documentaries that delve deeper into this case and the broader issues that it raises.
Absolutely.
Remember, knowledge is power.
It is.
The more we understand the world around us, the better equipped we are to make it a safer and more just place for everyone.
I agree.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop learning.